that's where so many of the women in the trust are right now. Like they're into growth, and the systems they had set up previously are not enough now for them to really look ahead and project and get, they need guidance in these areas. When you're looking to do something like, 3x, 10x your business, that's where you really are going to need, especially someone like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that doesn't take away from what you have done in the past. It's just, your systems, as all of our systems, we outgrow. What worked us for us at the very beginning generally doesn't work for us. We've evolved. Our businesses have evolved and grown in different ways. And so our systems and processes, including accounting, have to grow with that as well.
Welcome to Reward, the podcast of The Trust. We are the show specifically for women entrepreneurs who want to build businesses into the multi-million-dollar revenues and beyond, but especially because we know the reward is much greater than that. I'm Allie Brown, and I'm excited to introduce you to these diverse female leaders from a variety of industries, women making huge impact and who are unwilling to settle for the status quo. On the web, visit jointhetrust.org to learn more about our modern community for forward-thinking 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. That's jointhetrust.org. See you there. Now, get ready to enjoy this episode's powerful conversation.
Sarah Webb, where are you today with this jazzy background? It's very jazzy.
It is very jazzy. This right now I'm working in my dining room. We're working on a remodel of my office, and next to my office is my master bath. So it's loud and it's dusty. It's very dusty anytime you do construction. So my home office is relocated right now to my dining room. So yes, I'm getting to have jazzy, and then I have these goldfish, although they may not make as much sense in if you're not here in person.
I want to see them, but don't worry, you don't have to turn the camera. That's okay. And I realized when we were in our pre-chat that I know you had to reschedule last time because you had, as we know, anything with contractors, it's going to be twice as loud, take twice as long, cost twice as much, right?
Yes.
In general,
not yet, but no, I have great contractors, and they do try to tell me, okay, this is the day that we're going to be doing jackhammering, or this is the day we're going to do this. A little something took longer, and we needed water back in the house. And so, yes, thank you for being flexible so that we could get that jackhammering done, and we could all not be using the tiny bathroom for 4 people. So
we have been there for sure. Rescheduled a lot of stuff because of those reasons. So I'm excited. Well, I'm excited to finally have you on. It feels like a big event that we finally got you. So when you look at your entire career and what you've created, I know there's kind of a common theme, it seems, and I would like to kind of start, though, by going back. If you could tell a bit of your story and kind of how you became Sarah Webb, CFO, and what you do today. Like, walk us through a bit of that journey.
Yeah, so I always wanted to be in business, and that's probably because everyone in my family is a teacher, and so I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to be the black sheep, which meant be an accountant, which is really not that different. It's a very traditional path, but for my family, that was something different. I probably always was going to be an accountant.
How'd you know that?
So I like numbers, and my family talked about money, and I did not realize that until I went to college that other families did not talk about money. And some basic things were like at age 10, my dad would let me invest in the stock market. And so I would go and run and open the paper and pick stocks to invest in. And it's like Disney, Limited 2, things that were interesting to me at the time. And so I would give him my, $20 a share or whatever it would be. And we would watch it, through the newspaper if I'm up or down. But then it's like, oh, I need some money to do something. I would have to go to my dad and get my money back, and he would charge me a fee, and there would be a brokerage fee. And I'm sure that he just kept this on a little notepad, or just, gave me something back. But, that was kind of playing stock market at a very early age. My Valentine's, there was this catalog that my mom ordered these special Valentines from, and I always picked the checkbook. And so it was a checkbook was you would even rip it off the piece of paper, and I would write, to dear payable to, and it would be the person, and it had the square, and it would be hugs and kisses or something like that. But I was just always very interested in money and numbers, and I really liked the idea of the freedom of money. Like I would kind of be, as an independent person, even at age, very young age, like when I have my own money, I'm going to do this. And when I have my own money, I'm going to do that. And so it was just something that was very natural to me.
I love that. That is unusual for parents to, you don't hear that often that they talked about money, especially also they were teachers, which, they weren't
Yeah.
related
So
to the
my mom
financial
was a
industry.
teacher and my dad had a degree in finance. So my dad worked at a corporation in finance and he actually worked in loans. And so he saw people's credit applications and people who were good with money and people who were not good with money. And so I think that really like shaped kind of like, okay, maybe you're a high earner, but you have terrible credit and you spend all your money. Like just because you're driving that fancy new car doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot to back it up potentially. He kind of saw the gamut of things. And I would say my parents had a very traditional marriage. Both my parents worked outside the home, but when I say traditional money wise, it's like I see my mom pay bills every Sunday. Like my mom was the person who paid the family bills and my dad was the investor. And so from a finance standpoint, that to me seemed very natural and normal. Really until I went to college and then got married myself. And I'm like, oh, not everybody does it like that. That's so strange. Like all the things when you go to college, you're like, oh, in our family, we always opened a present on Christmas Eve. And some other families like, oh, no, we would never do that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I didn't even know that was different until I was older.
Yeah. So you got your degree and then what?
Yep. I got my degree in accounting. I did not do a 5-year program, which is a very traditional path. I didn't like my accounting classes. I thought they were boring and they're just a drag. So I got my accounting degree from Texas A&M and I got a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers. I prepared tax returns and I convinced them early on to pay for my MBA. So my second and third year of working there, I went to school at night at TCU, Texas Christian University, and got my MBA. And I took all my electives in marketing because when you work all day long in accounting, you're like, I couldn't do any more numbers for another 2 hours at night. So after I got my MBA, I had enough hours and qualifications to sit for the CPA exam and took it and passed it there. So I have a degree in accounting and then just an MBA on top of that.
Yeah. So did you like the marketing part of it?
I liked the marketing part of it just because it was something different. I don't think I'm necessarily like an excellent marketer, but it taught me a lot about, your customer avatar and different mediums and building campaigns. This was in 2005 and 2006, so we didn't even touch social media in marketing and how that was playing. But it definitely gave me the insight into the more overall business cycle, sales, marketing, accounting. I thought that was helpful to me at the time. I could not even imagine myself, quote, doing sales. And so it really kind of just opened my mind to a different avenue of business.
Yeah. All right. And then walk me through your 20s then.
Well, after I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers for almost 5 years, I didn't love doing tax returns. And I really wanted to go into the consulting arm, and they just kept trying to put me back into tax roles. And I wasn't even good at tax roles. Like there are so many people who are better at that type of work than I am. And so I found a job at Alcon. Alcon is a local company here in Fort Worth. They were a part of Novartis for a bit. And then they spun back out. My grandfather worked at Alcon as a chemist. And so when I went to work at Alcon, I thought I was going to work there forever. Like this is going to be the place. This is like the family business. This is the big local employer. And I worked there almost 10 years. I had an incredible experience. I changed jobs about every 18 months to 2 years. I had different types of roles. I always worked in finance. I did commission calculations for our sales reps. And then I worked for the longest time in business development. So anytime we bought or sold a molecule or a company, I would do the due diligence on that. So I would, calculate how much we should consider paying for it. And from there, I would be the integration person. So for about 2 years, I commuted to Germany. I would be in Fort Worth, Texas for 2 weeks. And then I would be in Germany for 2 weeks, helping this company that we just purchased kind of come into the way of, our operations. And at that time, my kids were 1 and 3. So it was just a really hard, I had this great experience and I traveled the world and did all these great things. But having little kids at home, I knew I just needed, a different pace.
Yeah.
And so from there, I worked with a small family company and was their controller for about 18 months. That was kind of a landing spot. This was not like my long-term plan. I want to go off and do, I guess, not small working for this family. They were a great family. I just needed something different from what I was doing. And from there, I bought a company, Plaid for Women. It is a multimedia company for women that focus on different aspects of a woman's life: health, mental wellness, financial well-being, and professional development. And through the website, I cold called people all the time. Like, I pulled back out those marketing chops and I was like, okay, I need a CRM. I'm going to cold call these people. What am I selling? What is my product? And did that for about 18 months and eventually sold that to a life coach because it really wasn't performing financially how I wanted it to perform. But
What was the
also,
product? I'm not clear. Like, what were you
so we were
selling
selling
with
online
Plaid?
advertising. So ad space, blog space. We would work with large corporations on their DEI programming. So if they had like a women's group, we would do the programming for the women's group here in the
Okay.
Dallas-Fort Worth area. So a lot of great connections and loved kind of the experience of doing something else. But I kind of got pulled back into accounting. Others were like, hey, we know that you are an accountant. Can you help us with, our accounting? And I'm like, no, I've got this other business that I'm running. And eventually I kind of systemized that business and was like, okay, I do have some capacity on the accounting side. So in 2019, that fall, I sold Plaid for Women to a life coach because the materials and the things that we were producing really Plaid for Women could be a funnel for her to get more clients and be that life coaching.
Smart.
And then solely focused on accounting after that.
Yeah. So fast forward to today, give us the state of the union, like this firm that you're running and your team and the type of clients you work for.
Yeah. So Webb CFO, we have 8 team members. We serve clients across the United States. Even though most of us are based here in Fort Worth, Texas, we only about 20 to 30% of our client base is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we're focused on licensed professionals. We work a lot with private medical practices and attorneys. So a lot of professionals that went to school for a really long time and now they're out on their own, practicing their trade and running their own practice. So we have team members here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we have a small office in Kentucky as well. So,
Okay. And then tell us about your clients, the different types of clients that you work with.
yep. So private medical practices, so doctors that have inventory, immunologists, allergists, dermatologists. The inventory piece really interests us. That's not something all doctors have. So they're not selling a product. And the inventory component makes the accounting a little bit more complicated.
What would be
And then,
inventory that a doctor would have, just to help us
so a
understand?
dermatologist, right? All of any products that you're applying to your face.
Okay.
Allergy
Yeah,
and immunologist.
that
If
makes
you're a
sense.
critical patient, you maybe go there for allergy shots or you go for IV so many times per month. So yeah, a doctor's office you're not thinking like, oh, inventory. They just have like a whole
Right.
room of stuff. But there's actually a lot of inventory control depending on the type of physician that they are.
Okay. Wow. So it's a whole other level of complexity
Yes.
that you're well versed in. Okay. And anything outside of medical?
Yep. So we do a lot with attorneys as well, help with their trust accounting. And that's because my husband's an attorney and I had to figure out how to do his stuff. So I was like, well, now that we know how to do this
Yeah.
and we have a process, we'll do that as well. We work with a lot of licensed professionals, people that are doing, marketing, sales. We really just have a no jerk policy. That's like our number one, if you're a jerk, we're not going to work with you. But have really honed our skills in the medical and legal space.
Yeah. When you have clients come to you, typically, are they having pain points in their business, or is everything going swell, or like what have you
Yeah.
learned, and what do you wish business owners would learn? I just gave you a lot there, but take it and run with it.
Yeah. So we are always called in a crisis. Like we are never called when things are going well. The typical situation is their bookkeeper or their head accounting person has left and payrolls tomorrow. Or they have, yeah. I mean, it's like more
We
often
can
than
all
not.
relate.
Like it really is, or someone, decided to have a baby and not come, all the circumstances. So we kind of are like in crisis mode most of the times that we are called in. Um, or you have a bank covenant that you're consistently not meeting, and so your banker's like, "Hey, you've got to do something about this." So we're generally in either like a turnaround or like a very messy situation, and so that's what we really focus on in the first 90 days is righting the ship from a standardizing the processes and just getting the books, if you will, up to date from whatever mess people had.
Mhm. Mhm. And then from there?
So from there, we can do any look, we do all the accountings, but what we can do if someone has a bookkeeper or controller and they have good processes, we can just act as the CFO. And so for those business owners, we'll meet with them every week or every other week and work on their budget or their cash forecasting. And so that those types of clients, they have like a full accounting team, and so we're just being the forward-looking people, the CFO components. And
Yeah.
then for other clients, they don't have an accounting team, or they have maybe a bookkeeper that just does the bare minimum. And so we'll act as their entire accounting department. We'll be their accounts payable. We'll run their HR. We'll handle their cash each week. And then at the end of the month, we'll reconcile their accounts, all their statements, and then produce a set of financial statements. So,
Mm.
kind of depends on what the client, needs. Not every client needs an accounting team, right? There are some that's like you can just run around with your debit card and your credit card, and then we'll just produce a set of financial statements at the end of the month. So
Yeah.
we try to meet the clients where they are kind of on their maturity level of their business.
When, in your opinion, would I know that the virtual CFO services are very popular right now. When, in your opinion, what are the stages like a business just needs maybe a part-time bookkeeper versus then someone higher level versus then like, wow, we need like a virtual CFO, not just Sherry here in the office,
Yeah.
doing the books for us and screwing up payroll or whatever happens.
Yeah. From my opinion, if you're going through some type of growth or you have these really big goals, then that's when you need to be working with a CFO, a virtual CFO or a full-time CFO. And a lot of times I recommend the fractional piece to start with because you may not need a full-time person. Um, if you're kind of status quo and you just need to do what you've been doing year after year, then, a virtual or fractional CFO is probably not where you need to be spending your money. If you're a new business and maybe you have Sherry from the back office can help you, but they're not an accountant, I do think it's wise to invest in working with someone is to like set it up on how it should be, right? Like
Mm.
maybe invest a few $1,000s at the beginning to have them set up all your payroll accounts, to give Sherry some basic training. And then maybe from there, you're checking in every 6 months to see how things are going versus, letting someone who's your friend set up your accounting and then you kind of like have problems forever.
Or realize
Either
Sherry's
with
been dipping into the pot, sometimes that
Yeah,
happens too.
that can happen at time to time. But I think most people are well intentioned. If they're just not trained or if it's not set up accurately at the beginning, it's hard to kind of undo that. It's
Yeah.
years from now, right? Like I find stuff and it's like, oh, this has been wrong for like since the beginning of time. Um, so I do encourage kind of like that setup piece. But once you're crossing over $1 million or you have growth plans or you're adding a bunch of employees at one time and you needed to know like what that runway of your cash flow looks like, that's when you can really invest in a fractional CFO to help you get to that next phase. Because Sherry, the bookkeeper, is great, but bookkeepers and accountants in general are not forward-looking people. That's
Yeah.
kind of where that fractional, that CF, that finance piece is coming from.
Okay.
I would say that's the main difference. Accounting is backwards looking and historical, and
Hmm.
finance is the forward looking piece.
Yeah. And once I heard about and understood the difference of these services, that's where so many of the women in the trust are right now. Like they're into growth and the systems they had set up previously are not enough now for them to really look ahead and project and get, they need guidance in these areas. When you're looking to do something like, 3x, 10x your business, that's where you really are going to need, especially someone like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that doesn't take away from what you have done in the past. It's just, your systems, as all of our systems, we outgrow. What worked us for us at the very beginning generally doesn't work for us. We've evolved. Our
Mhm.
businesses have evolved and grown in different ways. And so our systems and processes, including accounting, have to grow with that as well.
Yeah. I have heard you talk about some myths that for business owners have, and I'd love
Yeah.
if you could share some of those on the show today. And g- kind of like misconceptions maybe on how they should be running or growing their business when it comes to the financial stuff.
Yeah. So I think the number one myth that I see in my space is that if you're a technical expert, you're going to be a great business owner. So if you're a physician, an attorney, a marketeer, and you have that technical expertise in delivering something, then you can go out and start your own business, and that's going to be super easy for you. And as we know, running a business is not the same as being an employee. Just because you're the greatest attorney and you can win all the cases doesn't mean you know how to run payroll or do your own marketing or manage employees. And so I see a lot of technical experts who go off on their own and either they create themselves just another job, which is not bad. That's, some people that just want that. Or they just get stuck in only being good at whatever their technical expertise is versus running a business. Um,
Mhm.
Especially our highly degreed professionals, they go to school for a long time and they're so smart. Um, but I wouldn't cut my own hair or pull my own teeth or do some of those things. I wouldn't do any of those things. And so, sometimes they have a tendency to, okay, I'm gonna do this myself, or um, you know, me being a good enough lawyer is all that I have to focus on. And
Yeah.
being a business owner is so multifaceted.
I'm just going to jump in on that one before you go to the next one. I remember, and this was years ago, and God bless me, I was like, what, 27 or something. I thought after I started my little business that I had to then learn QuickBooks because that was the big thing. QuickBooks had just kind of really gotten,
Yeah.
its notoriety and it was everywhere. And it was the big thing that you could do it yourself. And so I bought QuickBooks. I don't know what I was thinking. So I buy it and then I'm trying to learn it. And it was hard. Like I couldn't figure it out. And then so then I paid someone to teach me QuickBooks. And I'm having a meltdown. This woman, I just remember she had her glasses and she kind of like, pulled them down over her nose and looked at me and said, you could pay someone to do this for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. I don't know. I was in that bootstrapping mindset that I'm going to figure this all out and I can do it. Hear me roar. And it was like this duh moment. And, going back, because as you're saying this, I'm thinking like, well, of course, why would even someone try? And then I remember what it's like when you're starting. And especially today, I bet there's all kinds of software and apps and things that promise you can do all this yourself, even for your business. And it's just not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. And that's actually one of my other myths is that you have to do it all yourself. I'm not great at marketing. I have partners that help me with that. I'm not writing my own legal documents. That's someone else's expertise. And it is really hard when you are bootstrapping it. You do feel like you have to do it, all of it yourself. And I think even just getting the guidance, like now there's so many more videos and YouTubes you can watch. And I'm like, okay, I could spend, 15 to 20 hours teaching myself how to do this, but I don't like doing it. I don't have a natural inclination to learn how to do this. It is probably, within a budget. Here's a budget I can set aside for this and have someone else do this. I mean, I took computer programming in high school and college. That doesn't mean that I want to whip out those skills and create anything for myself.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Any other myths?
Yeah, I think the other myth, kind of like do it yourself, but also do it alone. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, they don't want it's kind of the lone wolf. You're kind of, you know, who should I ask for advice? And I think, without having to have like a formal board meeting, you can easily create a little board of advisors, work with a banker that you trust, have lunch with an attorney, find an accountant or tax preparer that you want to work with, reach out to someone in marketing, and not like you have to have like official bartering of like, hey, I'm going to help you with this and I'll help you with that. But I think creating mini advisory boards are a way to really leverage and enhance and increase the speed of you getting to that next level, and reaching out to others. I think being a business owner can be lonely. If you're either if you're a solo entrepreneur or even when you're the boss, sometimes it's hard to bounce ideas off your employees. And so creating these mini advisory boards, and you don't even have to tell people you're on my mini advisory board. Go to lunch and go to coffee once a quarter with kind of just a rotating group of people, I think can be helpful to a lot of business owners.
I love that. That's kind of a nice segue into the trust, if you don't mind. I'd love to, you're obviously, you work with a lot of people at higher levels. What you do connects you with a lot of types of businesses and business owners. What drew you to the trust and why do you stay a part of it?
Yeah, I think, our early conversations where I was like, I want like serious business people. I don't want like this networking where we're just like, running around handing off people's business cards. And I think, after being at my first meeting, I was like, okay, these women get what I'm doing. And we can talk about the hard stuff. We can talk about, the money that we're earning and how that, sometimes we don't fit in mom groups anymore. The money or the businesses that we're growing and we don't want to be part of the guys club. That's like not of an interest to us. And so really just a camaraderie more than anything. I always learn something and I always bring back like valuable business information and, I'm taking notes and I'm like, okay, I can't do everything. So I need to focus, but it's more the camaraderie in the group of being like, okay, I'm not alone in this or, I'm not the expert at this, but here's someone who to call or, I need a referral for this type of thing. Who knows about this? And for me, it's really the connection and the network with the group of the other amazing women.
Yeah. Well, it's been great to have you. I know I've had you up on stage for panels and we've had great discussions on taxes and finance and you've brought just so much wisdom to the group. So thank you. It's been great to have you with us. And tell everyone before I wrap up with my last question, where can they learn more about you and anything else you'd like them to know?
Yeah, we're everywhere as Webb CFO, WEBB CFO. I didn't name it Webb CFO, meaning that I was virtual or on the World Wide Web. That was early questions in 2018. But yeah, we're on all the social networks. We love connecting with people in person. I'm trying to get out there and speak more at physician conferences and legal spaces. So if you see me there, I would love to connect and learn more about what other people are doing.
Love that. So what is the reward in all this for you, Sarah?
I think the reward for me is I get to build a life that I want. I read the book Life by Design in 2016, and I even have like the little piece of paper from that of like, this is what I want my day to look like. This is what I want to feel at the end of the day. This is what I want to contribute. This is how I want to feel as a wife and a mother and as a community member. And, that is the greatest reward for me, to be able to live that life kind of on my own terms and also really empower the other people on my team to live the life that they want. We have a very flexible work schedule. I have a team member who is a volunteer at all the Otters minor league games. That she loves baseball. And so she works her schedule and she gets to do that. So I think, not having to be a very like, this is the 8 to 5 job. I have to be here. I have to be stuck at this desk. It is the biggest reward for me because to me, there's so much more to life than working.
Yeah, I love that. Sarah, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for being part of the trust. And I hope to talk with you soon.
Yes, me too.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Subscribe now to the Reward Podcast to be sure to not miss an episode. And don't forget to visit jointhetrust.org to learn more about our modern community for forward-thinking 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. You can learn more, apply to join us, or refer another woman you know who is over the $1 million mark and is ready for a different type of women's network. We have events coming up both live and online that are truly creating new possibilities for female leaders. That's jointhetrust.org. See you there.